Now, if you told me you owned all of the Bitcoin in the world and you offered it to me for $25, I wouldn't take it because what would I do with it?
Warren Buffett has called Bitcoin rat poison squared, claiming that it is worthless and even a scam. And yet, despite Buffett's predictions, Bitcoin surged over 1,000% in the past 5 years, dramatically outperforming his own company, Berkshire Hathaway, which rose by around 170% during the same period. But not everyone agrees with Buffett. Take Robert Kiyosaki, the famous author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. He openly mocked Buffett's stance, recently saying, "Buffett and Munger are old rich men. Why should I care what they think about Bitcoin?" Kiyosaki even predicted Bitcoin might hit $350,000 someday, and he even confirms that he buys it in the same way he buys gold.
I don't save dollars, I save gold, silver, Bitcoin, Ethereum.
So, who's right here? Is Buffett making another legendary investment call, or is he about to regret missing out on the future of finance? I did a lot of research on this topic, and I couldn't believe what I discovered. Let's break it down piece by piece, starting with Bitcoin's role as an inflation hedge. In recent years, inflation has dominated headlines. Remember when gas prices soared to over $5 a gallon in the US back in 2022? Or when house prices jumped by nearly 50% since 2020? If you think that's bad, imagine living in Argentina, where inflation reached an astonishing 211% in 2023. People there watched their hard-earned savings evaporate overnight. In countries facing such extreme currency devaluation, Bitcoin became a beacon of hope. Turkey and Argentina now lead the world in crypto adoption, with nearly 1 in 4 Argentines owning some form of cryptocurrency. But here's where things get tricky. Bitcoin's track record as a stable inflation hedge is mixed. Sure, in the long run, it significantly outperformed collapsing currencies, but in short-term crises, like the US inflation peak of 2022, Bitcoin's value plunged dramatically. That raises a critical question. Can we truly rely on Bitcoin as digital gold, or is this just wishful thinking? Speaking of gold, let's talk scarcity. One major reason people buy Bitcoin is because its supply is capped at 21 million coins, period. Unlike traditional currencies like the US dollar, where central banks can print money endlessly, and trust me, they have, Bitcoin's scarcity is guaranteed by its code. The US Federal Reserve alone doubled its balance sheet during the pandemic, pumping trillions into the economy and fueling fears of inflation. But does scarcity mean we can really trust Bitcoin to hold up when market sentiment turns, or is scarcity alone a fragile foundation for lasting wealth? Bitcoin enthusiasts argue this scarcity makes Bitcoin the digital gold of our time. Even institutions like Goldman Sachs predicted back in 2022 that Bitcoin could eventually capture a large share of gold's market, potentially driving its value into the six-figure range. This trend was confirmed at the end of 2024 when Bitcoin reached $100,000 for the first time. However, skeptics, including Bill Gates, push back hard by asserting that cryptocurrencies are based on the greater fool theory.
Have an asset class that's 100% based on sort of greater fool theory that somebody's going to pay more for it than I do. I'm not involved in that. I'm not long or short any of those things.
Even Warren Buffett might have a point. Scarcity alone doesn't guarantee value. Consider collectibles or even NFTs. They're scarce. But does that scarcity always justify astronomical prices? For example, Jack Dorsey's first tweet was tokenized and sold as an NFT for nearly $3 million, even though it was a public tweet accessible to anyone. To make matters worse, that NFT lost about 99% of its value within a year, underscoring how quickly even high-priced digital assets can become practically worthless when market sentiment shifts. In a world where anything can be replicated at virtually no cost, what truly determines lasting value? Perhaps the best test of Bitcoin's real-world potential came when El Salvador took an unprecedented step in 2021, adopting Bitcoin as legal tender. President Nayib Bukele envisioned it as a financial revolution, promising increased foreign investment, lower remittance costs, and economic prosperity. Initially, there was excitement, global headlines, and bold promises of a Bitcoin city. But 2 years later, reality hit hard. Most Salvadorans never warmed up to Bitcoin, with surveys showing that nearly 90% rarely or never used it in daily transactions. Remittance channels hardly changed, businesses continued demanding dollars, and Bitcoin's volatility left many citizens wary. El Salvador eventually faced pressure from international institutions institutions like the International Monetary Fund, forcing them to scale back their Bitcoin ambitions. In December 2024, as part of a $1.4 billion loan agreement with the International Monetary Fund, the government agreed to make Bitcoin usage optional, remove its status as legal tender, and cease accepting it for tax payments. Here's the truth. Bitcoin as everyday currency didn't quite work, at least not yet. Does this vindicate Buffett's skepticism? Or could it be that El Salvador's issues were more about execution than the currency itself? Let's dig deeper into why Buffett dismisses Bitcoin outright. His criticism boils down to fundamentals. Buffett famously believes in buying assets that produce tangible value, companies generating profits, farmland yielding crops. Bitcoin, he argues, doesn't produce anything. You buy it hoping someone else will pay more later. This, according to Buffett, is speculation, not investment. And then there's regulation. Governments have been increasingly hostile toward crypto. China completely banned crypto activities in 2021, sending prices spiraling downward. In 2023, US regulators cracked down hard, suing major exchanges like Coinbase and Binance. However, the global regulatory landscape isn't entirely uniform. In Europe, for instance, the introduction of the Markets in Crypto Assets Regulation Law represents an effort to balance innovation with investor protection rather than simply shutting down crypto markets. This diversity in approaches underscores a key point. While governments in some regions view Bitcoin as a dangerous disruptor, others see it as an opportunity to modernize their economies. Buffett argues these regulatory moves show that Bitcoin's future is fundamentally uncertain.
In terms of cryptocurrencies, I can say almost with certainty that they will come to a bad ending.
But let me ask you something. Are we sure Buffett isn't repeating his past mistakes? Remember, Warren Buffett once famously missed out on tech giants Google and Amazon. He openly admits these were huge mistakes. Buffett avoided technology stocks for decades simply because he didn't fully understand their business models. Only later did he realize that his skepticism cost him billions. "I was too dumb to realize Amazon's potential," he famously confessed. Could Bitcoin be Buffett's next big blind spot? Consider this. Bitcoin has survived countless predictions of doom. It's gaining legitimacy every day. Major banks and hedge funds are piling in, Wall Street is pushing Bitcoin ETFs, and millions of younger investors see Bitcoin as the future of finance. Prominent investors like Chamath Palihapitiya and Mark Andreessen openly say Buffett's view on Bitcoin is outdated, suggesting that the Oracle of Omaha might once again be missing a revolutionary opportunity. So here we stand, caught between two worlds. On one side, a legendary investor who's rarely wrong, warning of Bitcoin's fundamental flaws. On the other side, an emerging generation of investors who see Bitcoin as an unstoppable wave of the future. Maybe Buffett's skepticism is justified. After all, Bitcoin hasn't quite replaced traditional currency or consistently proven itself as a stable store of value. Or maybe, just maybe, Buffett is overlooking the next big financial revolution, much like he overlooked Amazon and Google decades ago. Let me leave you with this question. If you had to place a bet today, would you side with Buffett's caution or embrace the possibility that Bitcoin could revolutionize money as we know it? Tell me what you think down in the comments. Your support helps this channel grow.